Yep, that's you. You're born alongside your twin sister, blind with a fine short layer of white fur. You're approximately 12 to 14 inches long, weighing about 1 pound. Your mother has carefully dug a snowed in high in the Arctic landscape, protecting you and your sister from the brutal winter winds. She has been pregnant for months, her body storing incredible fat reserves to nurse you and your sister through these critical early weeks. But survival is already a challenge. The Arctic is changing, and your very existence feels precarious. You open your eyes for the first time, but everything is blurry and dark. You're in a cramped, cold den with your twin sister, sensing the tension in your mother's body. The world outside is harsh and unforgiving. Climate change is rapidly transforming your habitat, and you can feel the struggle even as a newborn. You weigh barely more than 1 pound, vulnerable and already facing an uncertain future. For the first few months, survival is a constant battle. You and your sister drink milk that grows increasingly scarce as your mother's body struggles to maintain enough fat reserves. She hunts less frequently, the sea ice melting earlier each year, making seal hunting more difficult. You can sense her growing desperation. Some years, many cubs don't survive these early months. Let's just hope you're not one. As spring approaches, your mother leads you out of the den, but the landscape is dramatically different from what it once was. Where there should be solid ice, there are now patches of dark, open water. Your adaptive features seem increasingly insufficient. Your white fur, once perfect camouflage, now stands out against the less snowy terrain. Each step is a challenge. The ice feels thinner and less reliable. Your mother teaches you how to hunt with an urgency born of survival. Your sister watches intently because one day she'll have cubs of her own, while you prefer playing and making snowballs. You're learning how to hunt on increasingly fragmented sea ice, though struggling to pay attention. The hunting grounds are shrinking. Seals, your primary food source, are becoming harder to find. Your mother's hunting techniques, passed down through generations, are becoming less effective in this rapidly changing environment. As you grow, hunger becomes a constant companion. Your diet is inconsistent. Some days you eat well, other days you watch your mother return from hunting expeditions empty-handed. The Arctic's delicate ecosystem is collapsing around you. Your body requires massive amounts of food, up to 2 kilograms of blubber per day, but finding this becomes increasingly challenging. You watch other cubs in your region grow weak, some not surviving the summer. When you reach maturity, the full weight of environmental change becomes apparent. Your range has shrunk dramatically. Where polar bears once roamed hundreds of miles of sea ice, you now find yourself confined to smaller and smaller territories. Your muscular body, designed for swimming and hunting, feels increasingly useless. Many of your species are starving, forced to spend more time on land, competing for increasingly scarce resources. Then one day, as you lay down to rest after a long and frustrating hunt, you notice something is wrong when the familiar sound of cracking ice is interrupted by mechanical noises. Your heightened senses detect humans before you see them. But it's too late. A tranquilizer dart pierces your thick fur. The world begins to spin, your massive body growing heavy and unresponsive. You try to fight the sedation, but the chemical quickly overwhelms your powerful muscles. Your last conscious memory is of the vast, white landscape, the only home you've ever known, growing blurry and distant. When you awaken, everything has changed. You're confined in a metal container, the smell of diesel and human sweat replacing the crisp Arctic air. The journey is long and disorienting. First by helicopter, then by massive transport truck, and finally by ship. Your body, designed for swimming vast Arctic distances, is now cramped and immobilized. The journey takes days, each moment a stark reminder of your lost freedom. The vast open Arctic landscape is replaced by a concrete prison. The zoo. It's a mockery of your natural existence. Your powerful swimming abilities are reduced to pathetic circles in a small pool. Your hunting instincts are crushed by scheduled feedings and human gazing. In captivity, you're a shadow of your wild self. The concrete and glass walls are a constant reminder of your lost freedom. Your massive body, once a symbol of Arctic survival, now paces in repetitive patterns. Breeding programs treat you like a genetic commodity, your natural mating behaviors controlled and manipulated by human intervention. On the other hand, your twin sister, if she survives, continues to struggle in the wild. She navigates a landscape that becomes more hostile with each passing year. Global warming has transformed her hunting grounds. She watches her own cubs struggle to find food, to survive in an environment that becomes less hospitable with each passing season. You begin your life inside a chalky white egg, nestled in an enormous nest of sticks and soft materials perched high in a tall tree. You're one of 2 eggs your parents have laid, though sometimes you might be an only chick or have another sibling. After about 35 days of your parents taking turns keeping you warm, you begin to crack through your shell using your egg tooth, a small, sharp point on your beak that will fall off later. You emerge as a helpless chick, covered in light gray down feathers, weighing only about 3 ounces. Your eyes are open, but you're completely dependent on your parents. For your first few weeks, you and your sibling, if you have one, are constantly hungry. Your parents take turns bringing food to the nest, mostly fish torn into small, manageable pieces that are just right for your tiny beak. They're incredibly attentive, always making sure you're fed and protected from the elements. One parent usually stays with you while the other hunts. Around 3 weeks old, your baby down starts giving way to darker feathers. You're growing rapidly now, practicing standing on your increasingly strong legs and stretching your developing wings. Your appetite is enormous. You eat as much as your parents can bring, which can be up to half a pound of fish per day. At 6 weeks old, you're almost as big as your parents, but still covered in mostly dark brown feathers. This is when you start branching, hopping from the nest to nearby branches, strengthening your legs and wings. Your parents continue bringing food, but they start leaving it farther away in the nest, encouraging you to move around. Learning to fly is both thrilling and terrifying. Around 10 to 14 weeks old, you begin by watching your parents intently. They demonstrate soaring and hunting techniques, calling to you encouragingly. Your first flight attempts are short and wobbly, maybe just to a nearby branch and back. But each day you grow more confident. You learn to catch the thermal updrafts, spreading your massive 6 to 7 foot wingspan to ride the air currents with increasing skill. By 12 weeks, you're making longer flights and learning to hunt. At first, you're clumsy, missing more fish than you catch. But your parents continue to supplement your diet while you practice. You're learning to spot fish near the water's surface, to judge the right height and speed for diving, and to grasp slippery prey with your powerful talons. For the next 4 years, you wander widely, perfecting your hunting skills. Your diet expands to include not just fish, but also waterfowl, small mammals, and even carrion when necessary. Your juvenile dark brown feathers gradually give way to the distinctive white head and tail of adulthood, though it takes about 5 years for you to get your full adult coloring. Around age 4 to 5, you begin searching for a mate. When you find one, you perform spectacular courtship displays, locking talons in midair and cartwheeling toward the ground, separating at the last moment. Together, you and your mate build a massive nest, often returning to the same area where you were born. Now it's your turn to be a parent. You and your mate work together, taking turns incubating eggs and hunting for food. You'll fiercely defend your chicks from any threat and spend countless hours teaching them the skills they'll need to survive. You might live 20 to 30 years in the wild, raising many broods of eaglets throughout your life. Each year, you and your mate return to the same nest, adding new materials until it becomes enormous, sometimes weighing up to a ton. In your later years, you'll still be a skilled hunter, though you might take more rest between flights. You'll continue nurturing new generations until your final days, having lived a full life as one of nature's most magnificent birds of prey.